Britney Spears, Oops, I Did It Again, to put us in the right frame of mind. And I am truly a Britney Spears fan, so I guess that's my first fuck-up admission of the evening. So I'm really glad to have this opportunity to share a story of failure, because it's really a neat opportunity to sort of change the conversation. It was cool to hear your story, Noah. Known Noah for a few years. And I would tell you that the idea of doing magic in public and having no idea what's going to happen, scary as shit, but so much fun, right? And it's only fun at the end of it when you kind of look back and be like, okay, that wasn't tragic, but still. So to prepare for this conversation, I did what I usually do. I go look stuff up. And the first thing I did was look up the definition of success. And the definition of success is the achievement of your aim or your purpose. And the definition of failure is quite literally the absence of success. And I think that's why failure hurts so much on a personal level. It's because you're not achieving that purpose that you feel you're here for. And so if you're like me and you signed up to fail lots of times, you struggle with this sort of emotional journey all the time of wondering, am I even doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I achieving my purpose? Am I here for the right reasons? So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that process. To do that, I first want to talk about what purpose means to me. And so this story has its root probably 27 years ago when I was a freshman on the rowing team, and I'd gotten off the water after a really good practice. And my coach is like, James, that was great. You really killed it today. And I was like, thanks, coach. I'm feeling pretty good about myself. He's like, no, this was a really, really good row. You could be a star in this sport. And I'm like, yeah, I could be a star in this sport. My teammates are like, James is a star in the sport? And he said, James, you could go to the Olympics. And I said, yeah, I could go to the Olympics. He said, that's your potential. I said, yeah, that's my potential. And he goes, and that just means you haven't done it yet. I was like, oh, okay. Brought me back down to earth. And probably in that moment, I didn't know it quite then, but it set me up for the rest of my life to be really passionate about this notion of sort of fulfilling potential, right? So for me, my purpose in life is to not only fulfill my own potential, it's to really help other people do that as well. That is why I feel like I'm here. And so I also have loved storytelling and writing my whole life. It's in the name of our business, for crying out loud, so you hope I'm passionate about that. And I think when I decided that it was time to do something new and different, which is code for lost my job, time to find a new path. Another fuck up is out there. In that process, I said, well, let me start with a problem close to home, because I love writing and I love storytelling. And I was a frustrated writer. Okay, I'd had what I thought was a gift my whole life, but had not really done much with it, at least in a professional or entrepreneurial sense. So I paid my son $100 to sketch out each stage of this writing journey. And this was what I did concept testing with. Now, I didn't know anything about starting a business. I did read Lean Startup, though, so that qualifies me, right? And I said, let me do an MVP, minimum viable product, and I put it online to try to get a concept test. And I used illustrations like this, and I got enough feedback that said, hey, this is an interesting idea. You should go ahead and make this into a product or platform. And so, again, no technical background, but I gathered a few people around and said, hey, can you help me build this website? And so we built Share More Stories and we launched it. Now, a key part of this process was me thinking I needed to build something that I could then go raise money off of. Think about that for a minute. Not build something that people would buy. Build something that I could go raise money off of, which if you look back was kind of one of the many failures in this journey. But nevertheless, that was the process I was on. And so, back in 2014, everybody was crowdfunding, so why not me? I went to Indiegogo, signed up, had hardly any social reach, no audience, but what the hell? I'm pretty sure I can be successful. If LeVar Burton can crowdfund to restart reading Rainbow, I could do sharemorestories.com, right? And so, as you can see, it didn't work out quite the way I thought. That little aqua green teal bar is the most insulting thing on this entire chart. Like they should have just taken it off and just said you didn't reach your goal. But they made it super clear how little of the goal I met. And I had to stare at this thing pretty much every day from the start of the campaign. Jen Pike, who's one of my dear friends and also one of my teammates, I remember when I started the campaign, she said, well, it's not going to turn out the way you think it is, but you're going to learn a lot. And I was like, that's not a ringing endorsement, but okay. And she was right. It didn't turn out the way, at least I hoped. And so, when you're failing in public, it's a brutal, brutal existence. And when you're starting a business, that failure is almost every second of every day because in the most literal sense, based on the definition I shared, you've never fully achieved your purpose. You've never fully achieved the vision that you've aimed to go after. And so sometimes you find yourself kind of wandering around, asking yourself, how did I get here? Where am I? And what do I do next? And it is can be a very lonely and almost debilitating experience. But as I started to process that, I said, what happens when I fail? And what I realized is what happens for me is failure makes me dream. I dream about a better life for my family. I dream about what the things that I want to accomplish to make their lives better. And so then I started thinking, not just then, but even preparing for this conversation, what does dreaming have to do with failure? And this picture is taken from another day of failure. We were probably a year and change into the launch of Share More Stories, and it was going miserably. I mean, one of my mentors said very clearly, you have an interesting idea, but you do not have a business, because a business has customers, and you don't have any of those. So what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. I know that there's something here, but I can't figure it out. So we were pretty much, I was at rock bottom, broke. We had traveled to Ohio for my brother-in-law's wedding. And this day in particular, I remember looking at the bank account like, I hope we're going to have enough money to go home. Like, that's literally how bad it was. And you wouldn't know it by the expression of my face. I was sleeping quite peacefully there with my young son in my arms. And it occurs to me that, for me, the dream state is where I go to sort of find a little refuge from the terror and the fear and the anxiety of my failure. And so then I ask myself, well, what happens after I dream when I wake up? And for me, when I wake up from my dream, I create aspirations in my head. I decide what I want to do about that. And from my aspirations comes action. I do something. It's usually something different than I did in the first place because that was a fuck up and I'm trying not to repeat those too many times. But after I do, guess what happens? I fail again. And so for me, the cycle is not, fail, test, learn, fail, repeat. It's fail, dream, aspire, do, and fail again. And for me, it's not a vicious cycle. It is a staircase towards purpose. And so for me, the purpose is, very grandiose. Everybody wants to change the world. I very much want to change the world one person's story at a time. My team and I would like to do that at greater scale, of course, so one story at a time is a metaphor, not literally. But that's really why I'm here. And so I leave you with this idea that, for me, failure is inherently tied to purpose. In the words of a sort of a bastardization of a philosophy, I fail, therefore I am. Thank you.
Awesome.